Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Lily from Claws of Hatred, and today we're celebrating something really exciting, Pokemon's 30th anniversary. Can you believe it? I thought it would be the perfect excuse to paint some Pokemon nails while also answering one of the questions I get all the time. What's the difference between your Tier 2 and Tier 3 custom sets? So while I paint this adorable Bulbasaur, I'm going to break down what each tier includes, why the pricing is different, and hopefully help you figure out which option is right for your next custom order. Whether you started with the original games, collected cards, watched the show, or maybe have that one favorite Pokemon you've loved forever, mine is Gengar, it's kind of unreal seeing this franchise celebrate 30 years. One of my favorite things about creating custom sets is translating characters into wearable art. Every Pokemon has its own colors, personality, and little design details that make them instantly recognizable, and figuring out how to capture all of that on something as tiny as a nail is definitely one of my favorite creative challenges. So I actually wanted this to be more of a jelly look because when you look at this nail in the sun, you can actually see that it's semi-transparent with the forest background, which again adds a lot of that really cool depth. And I'm kind of just going in messily so you can see the different brush strokes, the different textures, the different shades, because no forest is exactly one shade of green, right? So the more depth and variation in shade that you add there, the more that the background will feel alive. So here I am framing out the trees, and then we're going to go in and actually fill in those trees so that they look like they're popping from the more transparent jelly background. You can also see I've created the shape at the bottom of the forest, and that's where Bulbasaur is going to end up standing. So that will make sense in a little bit. It's kind of a trust the process kind of thing. So let's start with Tier 2, which is currently 145. I usually describe Tier 2 as the perfect balance between statement nails and everyday wear. So with this tier, you're getting semi-complex artwork on about 3 fingers per hand, while the remaining nails usually feature coordinating elements that tie everything together. Those simpler nails definitely aren't plain though. They might include things like simple chrome line work, stars, gradients, gemstones, charms, or might have simple 3D details like sculpted blobs or raised accents. So instead of every single nail being packed with artwork, we're letting a few main nails really shine while the others support the overall design. So now let's talk about Tier 3, which starts at 175. This is where we go full maximalist. Every finger becomes a fully painted work of art. Instead of a few standout nails, almost every nail features detailed artwork. So we're layering techniques like hand-painted character art, multiple chrome finishes, really big charms, textured gels, complex 3D molds, and sometimes I piece molds together, sculptural elements, there's significantly more painting involved, but there's also so much more planning. So before I even pick up a brush, I'm figuring out how every nail interacts with the others so the finished set feels cohesive instead of overwhelming. One thing I always like explaining is that the pricing isn't based on materials alone. It's based on time, planning, and complexity. A Tier 3 set might require several additional hours of painting compared to a Tier 2 set. There are more layers, more detail work, more specialty products, and I really try to take the time to refine tiny details that most people won't consciously notice, but they absolutely make a difference. You're paying for the hours of illustration, color theory, sculpting, and craftsmanship that go into creating wearable art that's completely unique to you. I hope this gives you a better idea of the difference between Tier 2 and Tier 3 customs. From there, we're going to go in and add depth to the dirt that Bulbasaur is standing on. So I'm just going in with kind of a darker orange jelly tone. Again, to keep some of that white toned jelly base through the orange jelly for more depth. So now we are adding in a bit more of that green foliage. This is not so much the ground foliage, but it's kind of just adding depth to the forest, right? We want some underbrush around the trees. It's not going to just be, big tall trees. There are other bits in the background. And then on top of those, see, you can tell that I didn't add that much layering or detail to it because it's actually going to get covered. gonna start painting Bulbasaur now. So I'm going in with this very solid teal. This is from Chrysanthemum's V1 Pat palette. The colors are so perfect for art, and they are generally pretty high viscosity, so you can thin them out if you want to use them more like with line work, or you just want a lot easier blending versus when they just out of the pan, they're pretty thick. I actually just went straight in with how it was because I actually wanted a bit of the thickness. As you can see, the base is a little uneven from the trees. You can add a layer of base coat to even that out depending on what you're doing. For this, I knew that on top of Bulbasaur, we're actually going to continue adding more details, so I'm not base coating yet, and that's okay. I'm also going to go in and do a second layer just for like max opacity here, and that does fill in some of the bumpiness on Bulbasaur. So again, depending on what you're doing, you can do it earlier. You can see me going in with the base coat here because I want to even that out before I start adding the details onto Bulbasaur, like the outline, his little, you know, bulb on the back, some of the face details and things like that. We are going to go in and start adding more of the details. So we are painting the bulb on Bulbasaur's back right now. And the nice thing about this is, you know, of course you want accuracy based on the reference, but it doesn't have to be perfect necessarily because we are going to add shading on top of it. We're going to add more details. So what you really want is like a strong foundation for your piece, but it doesn't have to be exactly perfect, because imagine if I spent a ton of time making the trees in the background or like that little underbrush, like completely flawless, right? You can see that half of it is covered by Bulbasaur anyway, so learning where to kind of maximize the details and where it really matters will save you a lot of time and headache. So now that Bulbasaur's bulb is painted, we're going to go back in with a slightly darker, like a half-tone darker of teal, and add in some of the shadows. Now I do have the reference, the Bulbasaur card that this is painted from, open very large on my screen. Like we're like 200 or 400% zoomed into references sometimes because I really want to be able to see the max details. So find what works for you, right? I'm doing a very light outline here in a gray, not a black, because while there are parts of the card that have a darker black outline, I didn't want it to be too stark of a contrast with the rest of Bulbasaur, because once we add in the top layer details, some of the like finer shadows and things like that, the black would have been too similar to the rest of those details. It would have drawn the eye too much when you're looking at Bulbasaur, and so I went with a gray outline here. We're adding his tiny little mouth. So tiny. These are short coffin? These ones are coffin. And it's just, I mean, you can see that perspective-wise he's painted very large on the nail, but it's still so tiny. Like you can see that I'm barely dabbing this brush. Here we're just adding a bit more shadows to the corners of his mouth so that, you know, it looks just like the reference. And of course, when your mouth is open like that, not all of the light is going to hit. It's just going to hit the tongue in front. And then we're going in with just a teeny tiny bit of cat eye here for the base of Bulbasaur's eye. Now this part you do want to be slow, steady, and careful. While it doesn't have to be perfect necessarily, it has to be clean enough that all of the details, you know, remain crisp and it's not overlapping any of the other things that you've added. So I'm actually going to go in with IW Babylon's new UV gel pens. These are fantastic. They're so great for lettering. They're so great for, again, teeny tiny details. You can see Bulbasaur's pupils are itty bitty. So literally all I do is I just touch for a little bit with the gel pen, just move it up and down. That's it. I also did the teeth and his little claws the same way. Just a little touch and dab. And then now we are going in with a darker green jelly. It's actually one of the same jellies that I used in the forest base in the background. And we're adding in some of the details on Bulbasaur's bulb. Now, I mentioned trust the process earlier. The bulb is kind of a little bit of that. So the distinction or the definition in the bulb itself is fine. It's pretty straightforward. But then on top of that, there are actually shadows of the leaves on the topmost layer. And as you can see, we haven't painted that yet. So we're actually going to paint that in first. And it kind of looks like it doesn't really make sense because it's not quite shading, right? It's actually a shadow, so it's not going to blend necessarily. After we add in the vines, his vines, not just random vines, they're vines attached to him, we're going to go in and just start adding the topmost layer of leaves. I'm just using one of Diami's leaf brushes, actually, just to kind of go in and pat in general leaf shapes. You can see that they're by no means like perfectly shaped. They are, you know, leaf shaped, but they're not like crazy clean. And that's okay, because when you look at the card, the topmost layer of leaves almost has like a depth of field effect to it. So you do want it to look a little bit blurry, a little bit rough, because you want Bulbasaur to stand out, right? And so now the leaf shadows on his bulb make a lot more sense because you have the topmost layer of leaves. We're just adding in some color depth there, and you want brighter colors because, again, the sun rays that you see on the ground in the front, those aren't happening in the back of the image because Bulbasaur is like standing in a little leaf enclosure in a forest, right? So the light is going to be in the front, in the center. So we are now painting in the tips of his vines, and then we're actually going to chrome those on the final layer. After we add in some other random details like rocks and flowers, here we are going in with that chrome just to add a little bit more pizzazz when the whole piece is finished. It catches the light and you've got some cat eye depth, you've got some chrome depth. I kind of like it matte. Maybe I should have left it matte, but we did ultimately go with a glossy look for the final one. I'm just going to seal in some of that chrome to prevent any kind of rubbing off or chipping. I actually like to go in with Jinbei Ivy top liner. It's top coat, but it has a liner brush, as you can see, and I do one other layer of sealing that chrome in just to make sure there's absolutely no chipping, no rubbing away. And now here we are with the final top coat. Oh, it's so satisfying. Mwah. If you want to get your own set of nails in these tiers, lock in a spot in the order queue ASAP since our processing times have been consistently closer to 3 to 4 weeks. Orders for non-press-ons will remain open for August and September, but all orders will have to acknowledge that they won't be fulfilled until after October 1st. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with another Pokemon fan. It really helps support the channel and lets me keep making more fun nail content like this. I'll see you on the next one. Bye!